RoboVision, Picnic, La La Land, Kepler en natuurlijk Martens Mythe. In deze aflevering van On Air gaan we leren hoe computers kunnen zien en hoe ze zelfs niet bestaande mensen kunnen genereren. Dit is On Air. We gaan beginnen. Ja, vraag 10 experts naar de definitie van kunstmatige intelligentie. Je krijgt 10 verschillende antwoorden. Dat rijst de vraag: hoe kijkt de gemiddelde man en vrouw op straat naar AI? En hoe denken ze dat het vandaag de dag wordt toegepast? We vroegen het ze.
Dan denk ik aan die robot die op 4 poten loopt. Weet je wel, die zo kan dansen. Ja.
Computers die denken zoals een mens.
Dat er voor je wordt geleefd aan de hand van machines, denk ik.
Ja, die computers die slimmer worden van zichzelf, toch?
Ja, computers die problemen voor ons oplossen, die wij zelf, waar wij langer over doen, bijvoorbeeld.
Dat je dan antwoord krijgt van een robot, zeg maar, zoiets.
Aansturing bij computergebruik, bij software, algoritmes.
Denk ik aan computers, algoritmes, computers die met elkaar praten.
Intelligentie opgewekt door apparaten of iets, dat soort zaken.
Ja, ik denk dat je een verdergaande automatisering en robotisering vooral krijgt de komende 10, 20 jaar. Hè? In de industrie, maar ook in de zorg en allerlei andere sectoren.
Voor mij zijn ze ook steeds meer bezig inderdaad met de zorg om een soort van risicoprofiel te maken van mensen. Maar volgens mij is het allemaal nog heel erg in de ontwikkeling.
Online verkoop. Ik denk door de grote online dingen zoals Mediamarkt, noem het allemaal op. Daar denk ik dat er heel veel gebruik van gemaakt wordt al.
Social media, want daar kunnen ze zien wat jij leuk vindt, zeg maar. En vanaf dat kunnen ze er geld uithalen door je naar reclames door te sturen of zo, denk ik. Dat heb ik heel vaak de laatste tijd.
Die robotisering, dat gaat in de industrie plaatsvinden. Dat is waar de gewone burger niet zoveel van ziet of merkt. Maar dat gaat wel veel betekenen, hoor. Ja.
Two leading experts in the field of AI have joined me here in the studio to discuss their work and the latest trends and innovations in artificial intelligence. First of all, he sold his company in recommendation engines before working on his latest endeavor, Picnic. The fast-growing online supermarket calls itself an AI-first company and is currently working on a robot warehouse. Welcome, founder and CTO Daniel Gebler.
Thanks, Remy, for having me.
And with him is someone who has been working on computer vision since 2003. His company, RoboVision, creates deep learning at scale for various industries. And with success, he has companies like PepsiCo, Mitsubishi and Audi working with their software. All the way from Ghent, Jonathan Berthe.
Thank you for having me.
Jonathan, I want to start with you. You have an ambitious vision for the company. You want to open up the human-machine revolution.
Yes, that's right. We strongly believe that intelligence is collaborative in the sense that people on the shop floor are also part of this revolution. They have a lot of product knowledge. They have a lot of experience with different conditions. And they speak another language than the typical data scientists. And we believe that the marriage of these two profiles is the precondition to scale AI. What we see right now is a lot of point solutions, a lot of consultancy endeavors by consultancy AI companies, but they need to scale up to get this P&L going. And this is really important. And then you need like no-code platforms. You need total enablement of people on the shop floor. And we believe that that's a part of the democratization wave of AI to really get these models, unleash these models on top of this data.
Yeah, you've been working in the field since 2003.
Well, I started as a consultant, so self-employed.
Yeah, you went for the dark side for a couple of years.
Yes.
Now you're one of the good guys.
Yeah.
It still excites you today?
Absolutely, absolutely. If I see the impact of a solution, of an AI solution in a value chain, it is, it's very impactful. We're very impactful, for instance, in horticulture. Yeah. Really important in Holland, and the only way to go forward on a global scale is to get the levels of productivity of the typical employee in Benelux to a higher level. And you can only do that with AI and robotics. That's the only way forward to scale a company in these high-end societies as the Netherlands.
The only way to scale companies is through AI. Daniel, you call yourself an AI-first company. you probably agree with that statement, but can you explain what's the definition of an AI-first company?
So when we're talking about AI first, or which role AI can play in a business like Picnic, then we are talking about, if you're looking to business cases, which kind of business cases can be encoded in a classical software hard-coded rules, and which ones can be encoded as AI implementations, AI modules. And what we realized is that AI plays not only a role for the consumer proposition, so what can you buy, in which order you buy a product, etc., but also along the entire supply chain. And what we have seen now is that if you can track a banana from the harvesting until the point of sale with a customer, then you get much deeper insights, much higher efficiency, what we also heard here. But also, we are actually can provide not only faster products, but also fresher products to customers. And therefore, we have built the entire core of our platform around an AI system that is now powering the entire consumer proposition, but also the logistical proposition.
You started out with a company in recommender systems. Now, Picnic has a great recommendation engine as well. But you do much, much more. Can you name some of the innovations you've been working on the last few years?
Yeah. So recommender system is something that Amazon and others have already developed in the late 90s, early 2000s. Then it became basically commoditized in between 2000 and 2010, and everybody is doing to some extent.
Yeah, you became bored. You wanted to do something.
But what is happening now is the really exciting innovation, AI innovation, is happening no longer directly on the consumer proposition, but more on the logistical, the back-end proposition. So therefore, logistics, purchasing, harvesting, Horeca, and all those kind of elements, what we heard already in the introduction. These are the business verticals where AI can have a massive impact. So what we do, for instance, our route planning is becoming every day a little bit better, because we can take the data from yesterday, make a better planning today, and that introduces basically an improvement for the next day.
Yeah, you build an in-house route planner, right?
Exactly. So we will build in-house route planner, in-house route optimization, but in the same way also we're getting a lot of customer recommendations. So if you get every day a few thousand recommendations, then you need to make natural language processing, because you can't any longer do all the analysis of the language yourself. Yeah. But then you need to make also sentiment analysis. What is maybe a feedback where you should respond now, and which one can wait a little bit. And all those kind of elements together build a platform where we have now around 50, 60 modules that together build the kind of the AI core of Picnic.
Jonathan, you're currently working with about 100 very smart people for various companies in 40 countries. But it's still very hard for me to get a grip of what it is you guys are building. Can you explain to me in layman's terms what the proposition of RoboVision is? What pain are you solving?
The pain we are solving is actually that to get from these large amounts of data, to get a running deep learning model at scale and to manage that deep learning model is more difficult than it seems. Especially because most AI models need often to be retrained by different people and by very heterogeneous data. So what we actually see in the B2C world, like a Facebook timeline, also needs to happen for AI models. AI models need to have their Facebook timeline, and we need to know as management where it was retrained and where possible problems were introduced. So you have this whole no-code flow of operators, shop floor operators that need to build models, but they also need to be managed.
Yeah.
And suppose that there is a problem with one annotation part of a very important model, then you need to pinpoint this problem and you need to get this out, this bad things out of the data creation. Yeah, and then you need to discard, for instance, some annotator because you know that he was not up to expertise. And this kind of management layer is very, very important, especially in retail where you have thousands of products. If you need to recognize a damage in a retail product, especially in a lights out supermarket, you need to know what a damage is on 20,000 products. So you need this at scale creation, and you cannot have the data scientists there on the shop floor to answer questions about test and validation sets. You need the shop floor assistant himself to retrain a model.
But let's take a real world example. Do you have a real world example where your platform is currently being used?
Yes, absolutely. For instance, Florensis, not so far from here, is building thousands of models on top of the RoboVision platform. And these are operators in Holland and annotators in Kenya and Tanzania that are doing these annotations.
But what are they doing? I don't know the company.
They're giving examples. So the true nature of deep learning, I mean, as it is used in the industry right now, is supervised deep learning, meaning that you need to give tons of examples in order for a model to work in the 99% and so on.
But so I don't know what they're trying to solve.
So you have all of these seedlings, all of these small cuttings, chrysanthemum cuttings, that are used, for instance, at marriages or whatever, and they need to be grown at scale. So we need like billions of them a day. But these are all like small cuttings from a mother plant in Kenya, and they need to be put in the soil. Now, to recognize all of these different plants, you need a lot of AI models, because these plants are different, and what is a root for one plant is not a root for another. So this at-scale creation can only be done by non-specialists, because you need a lot of people giving examples.
What you're describing is actually a very important trend that we see in the entire ML industry, that you have an incubation of models. And typically you don't need so many models, but you need ML operation, which is a large team that is operating, training and improving the ML systems. And the ML operators are typically not data scientists, but are typically 10 times, 20 times, 50 times more than your actual data scientists.
Yes.
We gaan terug naar de straat, waar we mensen het dilemma voorleggen. Wordt jouw baan straks overgenomen door een robot?
Ik denk de meest simpele dingen zouden wel overgenomen kunnen worden door AI. Dat zie je nu ook al, zelfpinkassa's en zo. Maar het kan ook bijvoorbeeld in een restaurant zo'n rollende ober met een robot-ober.
Ja, beroepen overnemen, maar er komen ook nieuwe beroepen bij. Het moet allemaal gemaakt worden.
Zelf werk ik in de zorg, ben niet zo bang dat daar nou 1, 2, 3 kunstmatige intelligentie gebruikt zal gaan worden.
Nee, dat weet ik zeker van niet. Nee, ik ben nu monteur, dan bouwen laboratoriums en dat zijn zoveel dingetjes. Nee, dat gaat niet lukken, denk ik.
Ik vind het meer een zorg dat het oog voor het mens, zeg maar. Hè? Als alles wordt geregeld door machines, dan ontgaat je heel veel. Dat zie je nu al. Heel veel mensen leven al individualistisch. En dat menselijke contact dat wegvaagt, dat baart mij eigenlijk meer zorgen. Dat andere, dat gebeurt, dat hou je denk ik toch niet tegen.
Daniel, you have many talented young people working at Picnic. Do they ever come to you and ask, is my job going to disappear because of you?
There's definitely concerns that what we are doing on the robotization and automation that will at some point will also make jobs to disappear. What I'm telling everybody, and I'm also deeply convinced, is that what we are doing is not so much pure artificial intelligence, but it's augmented intelligence. So what we are looking into is all process flows for customer service professionals, but also for fulfillment operators, is what is the less intelligent, or let's say a little bit dumber and a simpler work that can be easily robotized and automated, and what is the part that is more creative, where we need humans. And we are making this split very deliberate in a way that whenever we are building on an AI model or on an automation, that we look into how can the same amount of people basically process more orders. For our automated fulfillment center, the goal was very simple: same amount of people, but 3 to 5 times more orders out of the fulfillment center. And that is also what we are working towards with all our AI models and our AI automation.
Jonathan, do you get these concerns in Belgium as well?
Of course. And my answer to that is almost always like there will be a lot of different jobs in the future. And these different jobs will create new ecosystems that will require new responsibilities. Because there is still a society, there's still a lot of people that will be busy with a lot of passions. We also need to rethink the normal work week and education in order to support this future society. So it will not be a walk in the park, but I believe, I'm an optimist, I believe in the future, and I believe it will support our dreams in a better way than right now.
So Daniel, one of the things I really like when I get home from work is that I always see these small little picnic vans driving through the streets, all electric. But that's what we see from the outside. From the inside, you're measuring every single thing, right?
We are measuring, especially across the supply chain, every single interaction, and that means essentially the flows. So what is happening in a fulfillment center by buying, but also on the street. But also the interaction between humans and the machine itself.
Yeah, because you build a coaching platform basically for the drivers.
Exactly. So when we started, the first step was building a route planning that we in an efficient way can go our milking routes. The next step is when we realized we have more than 1,000 cars, we're driving every day more than 100,000 kilometers, then we need to also think about how do we structurally work on safety. And then we have built a driver coach, which essentially gives the driver in real time feedback on how to drive safe. So that means when you're approaching a corner, then it will give you some hints on how to actually take the corner. It will give you after the corner some feedback, was it a good corner or not, a bad corner. And after the drive itself, it will give you a score where you can see was this a good drive or what can I improve the next time to drive even more safer.
So a bit of gamification built in.
That is a massive gamification, and it went so far that we actually not only give a single driver's feedback, but the entire group. And there's also a small reward if the entire group is above a specific score, and therefore have been driving safer towards our customers.
Gamification in the software, is that something RoboVision is working on?
We're actually thinking about that, yes, because a lot of the things we need to annotate in horticultural data are 3D and can be seen as a game to some extent. Like you can do nice things with a rose, with rose branches.
Yeah, because you see a picture and you want to train the computer to recognize the rose. You have to sort of paint the rose.
Yes, you have to paint the topology of the rose. So you can imagine that if you would like have a running game on the branch of roses, you could just like gamify this and connect it maybe to a fitness activity and pay people in the future to go to the gym. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Because you're working on this data labeling platform, and oftentimes people forget how much human labor, human hours go into training these algorithms.
Absolutely.
How are you solving that, Daniel? Because you have a big group of people, but never enough, I guess.
Well, this is in general in tech, and especially around data science and machine learning, but in general in tech, you never have enough people. So it doesn't matter if you're kind of a 3-people startup or if you work on Google scale, nobody has enough people. However, what we are trying to look into is how can we structurally make improvements every single day that allow us to basically create more value for customers, but also for Picnic tomorrow with the same amount of people. If you're looking to this ML and AI training, we have a group that is building, incubating new models, and then there's a team that is, well, a few teams that are training those models. The most interesting use case that we're working on is actually not so much training or labeling pictures based on what is in the picture, but what is not in the picture, or how, for instance, a broken picture look like. Let me give you an example. So the typical AI example is you label cats and dogs, and that is a cat, that is a dog. However, the problem is in food, if you want to, for instance, recognize a product that is broken, then maybe a healthy banana or a healthy cucumber looks always the same. But if it's broken during the transport, it looks always different. It can be broken in many, many different cases. So that is an open problem in AI that we are working on, also a little bit with Google and Facebook, and trying to find a solution. How can we identify a broken banana from just a picture? Because every banana is slightly different broken. Humans are still much better there.
Yeah, that's called anomaly detection, and it's part of our suit. So.
One of the things you are trying to solve is getting AI to scale within these companies, because I saw some sort of statement on your website that almost 90% of all AI initiatives don't get to scale. Yeah. And you said it's often because there's this big data team in their ivory tower and they don't talk to the people on the floor.
Exactly, because the real devil is in the details, as in many complex problems. And for scaling, you need to manage those edge cases, because it's not good enough to have like 98% in many cases. Imagine that 2 persons out of 100 will get a report that they have cancer and they haven't. So in many ecosystems, it's simply not allowed, and you need to really work on those edge cases. And not just have this hooray announcement like we have an AI model working and then the edge cases are just disregarded. In many parts of society, the edge cases are the essential part of your value chain.
So what can we do to get to scale? Collaborate?
Well, build the right management tools that are often a hybrid between just good user flows and good AI creation. It's not only about AI, it's also building the right scalable application that can generate a multitude of AI models, and not only generate them, but also manage them. Because, for instance, at Florensis, we have about, out of my heart, 2,500 models. So, and these need to be managed by operators. And there is not a single data scientist there, not a single MLOps guy there. So it needs to be efficient, it needs to be logic, and it needs to be intuitive for everybody to work and to scale AI.
What's it like at Picnic, Daniel? How have you organized so that machine learning is in every vein of every team?
So what we have done and what we do regularly is we review our entire functional stack that we have implemented, and then we are making a judgment what do we still need in a kind of a classical Java or software implementation, and what can we migrate to a machine learning implementation. And that is something what we do in a structural way, and therefore we have more and more on the ML side. What we do also in parallel is we also review which kind of ML models need a backup on having still software backup models to have a kind of a solution if something would not work on this side. But the most important transition that we did is an internal democratization of the way how we run ML models. So we have started, like many companies, with a central data science team, but this is actually an anti-pattern. If you want to be a really AI or data science driven company, you need to have data scientists across the entire organization, no central team any longer. And that is the starting point where you say every organization, every department has a couple of data scientists, ML operators, and therefore you have really full stack teams on HR, on finance, but also on all kind of tech functions. And that is basically the state where we are now.
Dan gaan we door naar Martin's mythe, waarin AI-expert Martin Hagoort hardnekkige mythes over kunstmatige intelligentie weerlegt. In deze aflevering gaat het over dat het mensenbrein helemaal geen computer is.
Is your brain a computer? First of all, it's a myth, to my opinion, and it's a myth that's being commonly used by everyone. It's fed by Hollywood, not by science, and we all use this myth in our day-to-day discussions with regards to AI. I think it's important. I think it's important because it has a lot of negative impact when we fully embrace this myth that our brain is a computer. Somehow it is logical that we think like that, because we, as sense-making beings, like to model reality in order for us to better understand reality. And there is this neural net, which we use in AI, and we have a kind of a network in our brain as well. And I think it's important that we realize the limitations of AI. That it's not as complicated and brilliant as our brain works. What AI does is it selects data, sorts data, filters data. And it doesn't think. We use the word think about a computer, but a computer doesn't think. He just executes fairly simple tasks. AI is very important, and it will change a lot of things we do, and it's already changing a lot of things we do. But we don't need to fear it at all, because it's a computer following instructions. An algorithm, that's what we use, is inherently dumb. It's an instruction, step 1, step 2, step 3, and you do this. So it's no intelligence is needed. We just are very much impressed by it, because it moves fast, and we should be using it and embracing it. But we should not be fearing it.
Daniel, you seem like a guy who enjoys a bit of science fiction.
I certainly do.
Did Hollywood scare us, the general population? Maybe a bit too much.
I'm not sure if I'm the best one to answer this, because I certainly enjoy a little bit of science fiction. But I think there are certainly fears from across the entire society about what is the impact of AI. And what we heard now, John, about what actually AI is, which is applied statistics and following to some extent also just the rules that have been trained at some point, is factually totally true. However, the real power of AI is that you can, with a huge amount of data, train a large set of behaviors to a system, which was not beforehand possible. So even the largest software systems that have been developed, like Microsoft Windows or an Office suite, is just a couple of 100 million lines of code. While you can do with AI, you can feed it billions, trillions, quadrillions kinds of data points. And that is the real fundamental difference.
Now, Jonathan, the DeepMind, the famous company owned by Google these days, they said recently that with reinforcement learning, it is possible to create a form of general artificial intelligence. What do you think?
I think that a lot of opinionating about this is a bit unnuanced to say. For instance, the statements are mostly true for supervised deep learning, where you have a contained system of data sets and where you basically build a gigantic correlation engine. But if you think about agent-based AI, reinforcement learning, and a multitude of agents that will take decisions at the moment with the information they have, in principle, what neuroscientists are discovering right now is that our brain also works agent-based, and it's terribly more complicated and it's more efficient. But to say that AI is just a stupid algorithm that is executing is for many parts true in supervised deep learning. But what DeepMind is working on is going into the direction of general intelligence. It's anywhere there yet.
But it's possible.
But it's in principle possible, and from a philosophical point of view, the fact that it is possible is more important than when it will be possible, because it will probably be possible in the lifetime of my children, which is like mind-blowing. I mean, to that extent, many AI experts agree. We just started out with AI. I mean, if you look at the whole revolution of deep learning, it's a bit more than 10 years right now that we started scaling GPUs and neural networks.
It is going so fast.
We're just, if you look on a scale of humanity or the age of our planet, we just started out with the first microsecond. So let's not philosophize from this very first microsecond, because we will see enormous things happening in the next decades.
In On Air gaan we op bezoek bij ondernemers achter ambitieuze start-ups over hoe ze met AI nieuwe producten en diensten ontwikkelen. In deze aflevering gaan we op bezoek bij Harro Stokman. Hij vertelt hoe zijn bedrijf Kepler Vision ons helpt om een prettige oude dag te hebben.
Kepler Vision is een spin-off van de Universiteit van Amsterdam. En wij brengen kunstmatige intelligentie naar de markt. De Kepler Night Nurse is software die kijkt in videobeelden en die kan herkennen wat er in de kamer gebeurt. Die kan herkennen of jij in bed ligt, of dat je uit bed bent, of dat je bent gevallen. Traditionele domotica gaat af als er een kat op het bed springt, of als er een gordijn wappert, of als er een kussen op de grond valt. Onze software kan zeggen dat iemand uit bed is gestapt, op de grond is gevallen, zonder dat wij meldingen genereren vanwege valse alarm. Onze software geeft 1 vals alarm per 92 dagen per kamer. En dat is ongekend, want de standaard domotica geeft 5 tot 10 valse alarmen per kamer per nacht. De zorg wordt ontlast omdat de mensen die zorg verlenen productiever worden. Dus die hoeven niet meer nodeloos allemaal gangen af om te kijken hoe het met de cliënt is. En daardoor komt veel meer tijd beschikbaar om andere dingen met de cliënten te doen. Bijvoorbeeld het leggen van een puzzel of te vragen hoe het met ze is. Er is geen zware apparatuur voor onze software voor nodig. Dit is een mini-computertje. Er zit een NVIDIA Jetson GPU in. En met één zo'n kastje doen wij 8 videostreams. Dag en nacht kunnen we daarmee verwerken. De beelden komen in principe nooit het verzorgingshuis uit. Dit kastje verstuurt tekstberichten naar de cloud. En in de cloud worden ze verstuurd naar de zorgverlener. Onze software is best wel heel erg vernieuwend. En wij hebben tot nog toe 3 patenten toegekend gekregen op onze software. En we hebben er nog 9 die onder review zijn. En het grote voordeel van die patenten is dat het Kepler in staat stelt om deze software voor zichzelf te gebruiken.
Yeah, so a camera in the nursing home to detect if you're falling out of bed or are in the bathroom for too long. Jonathan, this raises the question: would you rather have a camera system monitoring your grandparents or your parents or yourself, or would you rather have a human knocking on the door every 2 hours or so?
Well, I think everybody would prefer a human, to be honest, but that's not feasible and cost efficient. So at some point, you have to make hard decisions. If your grandparents or parents want to stay longer in their environment where they always have been with their pets and their plants and their habits, then you need technology to support that. And especially in these times of pandemics, we have seen that the nursing homes are often a problematic place, especially with so many vulnerable people together. So I strongly believe in a future where technology is supporting our elderly people in a good karma way, and where possible, people can still chat and talk. But of course, there is a difference between the social component, like having a nice conversation, and your security, your well-being, and harm detection.
And Daniel, what do you think? Because you can also make the point that it's much less invasive if a camera system is monitoring you than if a human walks in every couple of hours.
We have obviously the gut feeling because we have a lot of history around that taking care of elderly people should be done by humans, but it's pure extrapolation of our, let's say, experiences and what we are used to. And if you take this kind of experience away, then most likely there's a much more neutral view to the way how elderly care could look like. If you go, for instance, if you look to Japan, because you have much more old people than young people, you see that, for instance, taking care of each other is no longer done just in the pure family, because there's no longer enough family relations. Then you have already different kind of people taking care of each other. So therefore, the family connection of taking care is already in some societies no longer that strong. So the step is probably not that big in the end.
Now, if we return to business real quickly, there are some major web shops around the world who are using this kind of technology in their warehouses as well to monitor the efficiency of people on the floor. Is that something that we should want as humankind, that we are constantly being monitored by these camera systems?
I believe that is something where I really absolutely not at all believe in, because there is some implicit underlying assumption that you can't trust anybody in the warehouse, and therefore you need to observe and monitor and control them. So I think it is much better and easier if you work on a culture where everybody is motivated to do the best work that he can do, and then you simply also give a little bit of trust to your employees.
What do you think, Jonathan?
Well, I think it's indeed, I fully agree with Daniel on this topic, actually.
With us in the studio is one of the most promising AI startups of this moment. They win prize after prize and are featured in international media with their solution to create diverse AI models for fashion brands and stores. With us today, Ugnius Rimza. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, you're working on generative AI. And for people who don't know what it is, what are you building?
What we do is basically we use these generative models to create synthetic human people. So we're trying to recreate the population to basically bring more diversity to e-commerce and also make people feel more included when shopping, thus reducing returns. But that's kind of what we're doing in a nutshell. So I guess we're trying to recreate humanity using artificial intelligence.
Yeah, because you're not only recreating faces, which has been done a couple of times now, but you're recreating whole bodies, basically.
So so that's kind of where we diversify, in terms of from other competitors, in terms of if you look at different age, different ethnicity, your body shape changes as well. As you age, as you things change
during COVID.
So we want to reflect all of that in the shopping experience. So when you're shopping, you have a better idea how this product will look on you. And that's kind of where we're.
So what's the biggest problem you're solving for your customers then?
So for brands, if you look at brands, currently right now they have incredibly high return rates, and return rates for them is basically this thing that you have free returns everywhere, but for them it's actually a huge cost, and it's a huge environmental cost as well. But that's kind of what we're trying to solve in terms of for the brands, and then for the consumer, of course, it's more of you get to see somebody more like yourself online, and basically have a better idea how this garment or these jeans will look on you.
And it's much faster, of course, because you don't have to plan these photo shoots on a fancy location.
Exactly.
somewhere.
So like the whole logistical part of a photo shoot is actually, you have to hire, photographers, lighting, like makeup, and then you have to, cast the models, and then you have to get everyone to one place.
Yeah.
Like organize all that. So it's a lot more logistics involved, and where, with AI, you kind of like, okay, like our customers come to us, okay, we want somebody that looks more like George Clooney, and then you're like, okay, cool, let me encode this into the latent space, and then you basically, mix and match, you play around, and you kind of try to find a good model for your customer, and then basically they're happy, and it takes a lot less time, basically.
Yeah. So, for example, I started my own clothing brand.
Yeah.
How much work is it to get from my digital design it onto a digital model?
One thing you do is basically, we have a lot of brands now, like they do full-on digital design, in terms of everything is in 3D. So then they already have these like what we call pack shots, basically, or like these ghost mannequin effects. So basically, it's just a garment that's kind of floating in the air in different sizes, and then basically that's kind of what they share with us. So we get the garment based from them, and then you would request, okay, I want to see this type of model wear my garment, and then we basically go. We generate this model. We first go back to you and say, okay, this is what you like. We're actually building a whole platform for this now, where the customer can do it themselves, and then basically map it. It's pretty fast, a lot faster than actual like traditional photo shoot. And then basically you put it on your web store. Initially, of course, later on we're gonna have like direct integration, so that's what we're working towards as well. In terms of we don't have to send you the pictures; that basically they'll go directly to your web store, like through either like Shopify or Magento or whatever.
And Daniel, what's your take on generative AI solutions like this? Is there room somewhere for Picnic?
Certainly. So we are on food. So we need to translate a little bit the use cases of from fashion to food. But I certainly can see that generative AI has a lot of applications, both on the consumer side, because you're describing mainly consumer or e-commerce use cases, but even more interesting in, for instance, in training environments for warehousing, where you can think of how do you actually train your new stuff on use cases that are physically not existing yet, but that you can generate in a kind of a digital twin way.
Yeah, and maybe also that you have a presenter that looks a bit like you, which you might be more fond of to learn from.
Exactly, and this especially with a very diverse workforce from all kind of nationalities and whatever kind of diverse angles. You certainly also can think of which kind of trainer would you like to have to actually be really responsive to the training.
Yeah, Jonathan, you've been working in computer vision for a very long time. Is generative AI the next?
Absolutely.
The next big leap, you think?
Yeah, because the cost of making an AI model is basically the cost of curating data. But if you have like a very realistic metaverse, I'm not pointing towards a specific context here, then this whole data curation task is of course obviously already integrated in the metaverse, because you know what the viewpoint will give in your metaverse. So we are really looking forward for partnerships with companies that are focused on this. For instance, to create digital twins of greenhouses, where we can just predict what the looks will be of cucumbers with particular daylight, or with snow on the greenhouse. Because I mean, it has to work always, not only efficiently of the data parts that you have by coincidence. So you need to plan for all of these different cases. Also in smart cities that we're also working on, you need to plan for a snowy day. But it's really difficult to have the snowy day data, because then you can only deliver at the first day of snow, when you validate with the snow. So you need a lot of companies, you need this ecosystem to start growing.
Yeah, so generative AI is much more than just only faces and deepfakes.
Of course,
and,
of course.
Ognius, their brands have become more diverse and inclusive these days, but I can imagine that there's still a gap, that you still have to like show them what is possible.
Yeah, so that's more, I think, a problem in fashion in general. So fashion's quite a traditional industry in terms of like they're quite, they like to push back to new things, basically, and changes, and they like to stay in their comfort zone. So if you look at a lot of the brands we talk to, a lot of the time they don't really know what models they actually want to be showing. So they end up like, we have this diverse population to offer, but they end up choosing the safe option, what they've always been choosing, but synthetic alternative, just because for them, like it's usually people that it's their day job. They don't want to take the risk of introducing completely different range of models to show it to their customers. So that for us is a big job now as well to kind of like help these brands kind of like almost like digital transformation for fashion in terms of like how do you get them comfortable to actually accept this like new. Like for them, it's almost scary sometimes in terms of okay, like wow, these guys are creating humans. Like how do I, how will my customers react? It's not gonna, bring the end of the world. It's not like this sentient AI or anything. It's just, it's just synthetic population of people that will, bring more diversity to your customers.
You started out with mostly female models.
Yeah.
Is it hard to like also go into the male space or anything in between these days?
No, well, technically, if you look at generative AI, it's kind of like the reason why we decided to go for the female market first of all, it's a much larger market, and there's a lot more data available. But in terms of like, you can apply the exact same techniques that we applied to generate female models to generate male models, and of course, when you have both, you can actually like interplay between, let's say, I generate a female model and a male model, and since basically it's a latent space, it's like vector mathematics, so you can move from one to another, and you can sample in between, so you can also get like. The transition, if you like, so it's quite powerful what you can do while just playing around with the trained models in terms of.
What's the next step, you reckon? Is it that you can also upload your own face onto these models, maybe?
So we've done that before. Actually, I do that as like my technical pitch. I put my face, and what you can do is basically, let's say I have a small data set, let's say 20 samples of people that are smiling, people that are frowning. So I take the latent averages of these, and I can make myself like smile, frown, or like I can mix my face with your face and sample somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So you can see my face transitioning to your face, and then basically the middle points are basically the mix of me and you, basically how that person would look. So I kind of do these kind of little fun little experiments, and more like to kind of show the power of what GANs can do. So it's more like you can have a minority class of data. Like, let's say you only have like a few hundred people wearing glasses, but that's already enough from a generative AI perspective to add glasses to me. As long as I know these 500 people, I can move to me wearing glasses, basically, which is pretty cool.
Final question. What's the biggest hurdle for you guys at this point?
We need to have a very diverse data set in terms of, we have to cover all ethnicities, all genders, all age groups.
Yeah.
And that's quite a big hurdle in terms of, you have like the easy to find data, which is basically, like what's on basically everywhere. So basically, Caucasian models in their 20s, skinny, beautiful. But of course, that's not where we're aiming for. We're aiming for, that everyone feels included. So there's a lot of like data synthesis techniques that we have to apply. We use actually GANs to like synthesize more data, and then we use that data to train again. It's kind of where the biggest challenge is, basically. How do we, build up these data sets?
Ja, dames en heren, dat was hem alweer. Hartelijk dank voor het kijken naar deze aflevering van On Air. Ik wil mijn tafelgasten bedanken voor hun tijd en inzichten. En jij natuurlijk thuis voor je aandacht. Wil je nou op de hoogte blijven van nieuwe afleveringen? En dus niks missen over de laatste inzichten over de wonderwereld van kunstmatige intelligentie? Houd dan onze website in de gaten en natuurlijk de social media. Mijn naam is Remy Gieling. Bedankt voor het kijken naar On Air.